The Fan.
Nine to noon. And he's P.A.
Oh, please.
Isn't that something?
Welcome back to the show.
And welcome back to Stockholm, Sweden. 9 to noon is 4 to 7 over there. And here's Anthony Lapanta, the play-by-play voice for Bally's, calling Minnesota Wild games. And Anthony's in Stockholm with a bunch of his best friends. What's going on, Heir Apparent? How are things?
Everything's great. It's been awesome in Stockholm so far. Beautiful city. My first time here, and it's been terrific. Food's been great. The scenery's great. Went to see a Viking museum today, so that was pretty good.
What was that like?
The Voss Museum, it was really cool. There was a Viking ship that sunk in, I believe it was 1628. They found it like 350 years later and pulled it up from the bottom of the Baltic Sea, and it's in its natural state. It was amazing to look at. It was pretty cool to read a little bit about how the Vikings lived back in those days, and the ship was amazing. It was worth the trip. Anybody who's coming over here or is here now, the Boston Museum is worth a stop.
Did you encounter any restaurants where, you're sitting at your table and then you're like, you know what, I'm going to navigate my way to the kitchen to show them really how to make Swedish meatballs?
I didn't. We went to what I guess you'd call an authentic Swedish place the first night we were here, and there were 7 of us. I think 5 ordered the Swedish meatballs. I went Arctic Char instead, but the meatballs got rave reviews. The Arctic Char was good. The food's been good here. I didn't really know what to expect with Swedish cuisine. About all I knew about it was Swedish meatballs. So it's been good. We had a pickled herring appetizer that was really good that night. That part's been good, but the service here is great. The city's clean. It's neat. It's a pretty cool spot.
Ted, from what you know, what you saw, and what you feel, because you're an elite hockey mind and your instincts are quite good, Dean's practices after that Dallas debacle. I mean, just super hard practices, right?
The next day was maybe as hard a practice as I've seen a Wild coach run. It was about an hour straight of heavy, hard skating, and I think the guys knew it coming in. They were prepared for it. He had given a sneak peek the night before where he just made the comment in the postgame that tomorrow isn't going to be any fun. And I think the guys got the message. What's been interesting is I really don't think it's been a lack of effort with this team. It's just been a lack of attention to detail, a lack of commitment to play the game the way the Wild have frankly played it for most of their franchise history, which has been a structured style, a disciplined style, don't beat yourself style, and they've just beaten themselves so far way too often this year. So he had their attention that day. The first practice here on Wednesday, certainly not at that level intensity-wise, but more of an attention to detail, a lot of penalty kill time that day. That's been a major point of concern for this team all year long. So they're a little bit of a mix of really worked them hard on that next day after the Dallas game, and then getting back to maybe a little bit more X's and O's focused on Wednesday. Today was an off day for the team, and then they'll practice again tomorrow before playing the back-to-back games here.
I've heard, hey, Anthony, I've heard Dean mention it a couple of different times, and he joined us this morning, and I believe it was, we got to keep the bloody puck out of the net. And he kept referencing, hey, we're scoring enough goals, but basically what the hell's going on back on our end of things? Are we looking at that as, is that an indictment of Philip Gustafsson? Is that an indictment of Fleury? When you're getting 8 goals scored on you, it's everybody's fault. I get that. But how do you think Dean is viewing that? Is it as simple as X's and O's and attention to detail, or are we looking at the goaltending situation at all? How do you see that?
I think it's both. I think the goaltending certainly has not been as good as it was last year and as it needs to be. Last year they were 3rd in the league in save percentage at the end of the season. This year they've been sitting in the bottom 4 all year. And there are times where when the rest of the game is a little off, you just need your guy to make a big save. Sure, they got that a lot. And they got it from Gus almost nightly in the second half of the season last year, where the team was down 1-0. He'd make two big saves that prevented it from getting to 2-0. And this year, not only are they not stopping the one to get to 2, it's getting to 3 a lot of times. And so I think the goaltending has been a big part of it. And each night, it just always feels like there's one you point to where you say, that's the one they need. That's the one that the goalie would like to have back. That's the one you got to have. And then when you throw on top of it that I think there's a couple other factors. One is that losing Jared Spurgeon for the first 13 games of the season was a big deal. He is, number one, he's an elite defenseman. He's also the captain of the team and the leader of the team. But the trickle-down effect on the rest of the defensive core with Spurgeon out was significant. And then you throw on top of that Alex Likoski, who would normally have been your seventh guy and your first guy in, was also hurt. So that was a big loss. When you combine that with goalies not getting the stops that you need every once in a while, and then a schedule that was rigorous. We've already made 3 trips to the East Coast. We've seen the Rangers twice, the Devils twice, the Islanders. We've seen the Maple Leafs. We've seen the big boys in the Eastern Conference. Saw Florida. I mean, that's a lot, and a lot of time on the road and a lot of travel for this early part of the season. All that stuff will even out by the time the season's over. But they had a stretch at the beginning where it would have been a handful of a schedule if healthy. And when you throw on top of it that they were beat up and then they weren't getting great goaltending, all that stuff combined was a recipe for disaster.
In other sports, you can handle whether it's slumps or slow starts with your stars. You got to handle it a little bit differently maybe than just meat and potatoes. So in hockey, Kaprizov in all cases would mean more. You're a little more patient maybe with Kaprizov than you would be with third or fourth line role player. But how do you handle maybe a slow start? I've been reading things. Was there maybe an unknown injury? All of this. There's a lot of intrigue around it because number 97, we're not necessarily seeing the best of him right now. So how do you just kind of we wait for it to come for him to come out of his shell on his own?
Well, we haven't seen the best of him. There's no doubt. He hasn't been the same. Hasn't dominated games. Hasn't been as explosive. Some of the analytics say that his game hasn't been that far off, particularly over the last 5 games. Well, it was 4 games heading into Dallas. And it looked like there were some stretches in those games where maybe we were starting to see it. I don't think there's an injury there. I think he's healthy. And he was fine, skated in the Wednesday practice. I know he didn't practice on Monday, which Dean Evison called a maintenance day, and I know they were doing some tests just to make sure there wasn't anything there, but he appeared to come through that fine. I think he's healthy. He's good to go. But your point's a good one. Your best guys just simply have to score. And Kaprizov, and he isn't alone. Matt Boldy's right there with him. These are 2 guys they're $16 million of a payroll that is already hamstrung. I mean, you're already playing $14 million under the cap. So now you take $16 million, and when they're paid $16 million, they're paid to score. And they haven't scored. They haven't scored enough. They haven't scored at a rate that is worth that. And I think they both will. It's early, but they need those guys. And they've just frankly got to be better. And yes, you do give those guys a little more rope when it comes to playing the game the right way. But there's a time where you got to say, look, you can't just keep trying to make plays and feel like because you feel you need to score, it's okay to try to make that 1-on-3 play at the blue line that keeps resulting in odd man rush. I mean, Dallas had 5 lone breakaways the other day, and you just can't have that. So even though you need those guys to score, they're pressing because they haven't scored. You also have to play the game the right way, and it's just got to be let the game come, take the easy play, take the smart play, make the play that's there, and trust that eventually the puck's going to start going in.
Hey, lastly here, Anthony, and thank you very much for the time. The coach Dean Evison earlier in the radio show said that there are some changes that are taking place with the penalty kill. We're going to ask Kevin Gorg the same question when he joins, but just top of the head, what will we see that definitely will resonate when we watch and or listen to the games?
Well, you'll see a couple things. One, they had tried to mix a couple.
Hair? Joining us now is Kevin Gorg, analyst at Canterbury Park, and also side rink analyst for Bally Sports North. KG, what's going on, my brother?
I'm good, PA. Loving Sweden, just like the Panther, and really excited about your Vikings team and our two teams showing down this weekend. I will be tuning into the radio broadcast via iHeartMedia in my hotel room at 2 o'clock in the morning Sunday. Looking forward to that.
My sources tell me that the first meal you had in Stockholm, Sweden, was Swedish meatballs. I mean, is it a when in Rome situation, or was there just not much available?
No, this was Michael Russo's doing, our mutual friend. He put this dinner together, had been to this place and raved about it. So I was all in on authentic Swedish food. Like Anthony, I'd never had it before. And we talked to the waiter who had spent some time in New York City, but was native of here, and he said that's the way to go. So 5 of the 7 ordered the Swedish meatballs, and I'm going to tell you right now, out of this world good. Phenomenal. Like, I'm tempted to go back. I know you're supposed to try different things when you're on these special road trips to Europe, but it was that good.
I mean, better than the Swedish meatballs you get from the Casino Cafe at Canterbury Park, which I know you love.
Well, the steak and eggs at the casino at Canterbury is still undefeated, but if you can't have that, Swedish meatballs, if that's the 1A, that would be the 1B.
And speaking of that, just as an aside, somebody with whom Kevin and I were quite close and a major fixture in racing at Canterbury Park died a couple of days ago at the age of 64, horse owner and breeder Bob Lothenbach. And when I started to hear about that a couple of nights ago, it shook me up. I mean, because it just came out of nowhere. And so then you start texting and or calling people, just trying to figure out what's going on. But may God rest the soul of Bob Lothenbach, who just tantamount to what we do at the racetrack, right?
Unbelievable supporter of racing in Minnesota. Didn't have to be. With the kind of horses he had, the money he spent at the sales ring, could have done his racing primarily at tracks like Churchill Downs or Belmont Park or Keeneland, which he had horses all over the country. Always came back to Minnesota in the summer. Always knew where it started and always took care of us in Shakopee. And it was just 2 months ago, PA, that we were celebrating him in September on festival night with some of his fine horses like Charlie's Penny in the winner's circle. And he always had a big group out there, had a big party when his horses were running. He loved life. He was just an awesome person to be around. And like you, I'm still in shock from the news, the text chain that we had a couple nights ago. And, rest in peace, Mr. Lothenbach. And certainly racing in Minnesota will never be the same. He's one of the all-time greats.
So with the authentic Swedish food, I mean, herring's all over the place, right? I mean, I don't know if these are for you, Gorgomatic, but fermented herring I'm looking at right now. It's I don't know if that's for you. It's sour. You know, it's a sour form of herring.
Pickled herring is delicious.
Yeah, but what about fermented herring? That might be a little different.
Yeah, I'll take the pickled. I'm with Nordo. I'll take the pickled over the fermented, and that's, I think, part of the appetizer that Anthony had ordered the other night. There's also a lot of salmon here, and I love salmon. So the food here really is something, and really clean city, as Anthony mentioned, and the people just are so welcoming. It's my first time going to Europe, so I think the time change thing is the only thing that's kind of thrown me a little bit off. Mm-hmm. It's still bizarre that it's almost dinner time here, and you guys are doing your radio show, but outside of that, it's been really cool, and I'm excited to see how the weekend plays out. I, like a lot of Wild fans, have been a little mystified by the way the first 15 games have gone here, and I think that this weekend, I think the timing of this trip was really good to get a break in the schedule. As Anthony mentioned, it's been super busy. There's been a ton of travel. It's been hectic, and when your game isn't where it needs to be, I think hitting the reset button on a trip like this with a weekend ahead like they have was a good thing for this hockey team. I expect them to play their best game of the season on Saturday against Ottawa. I've liked what I've seen in practice the last couple of days, and I think Wild fans have to remember that this team wasn't very good last year at this point. And I'm not saying the same thing's going to happen and they're going to get back and eclipse 100 points and make the playoffs. That's still to be determined. But they had struggled through the middle of November last year. I remember it was a night they were celebrating 1,000 games for Alex Goligoski. And I was able to interview him on the ice, and they played that interview throughout the arena, and Goligoski got all choked up. His family was there. He had scored the winning goal in overtime, and he looked out to the crowd and said, "Stay with us. It's going to come. We've got a good team here. We haven't shown it yet, but if you stay with us, this thing's going to get better." And it's roughly the same time of the season as we are right now. So there's 67 games left. They have to get better goaltending. They have to be better on special teams. I do think getting Spurgeon back will help. And there is work to be done, but I don't think it's any time to panic.
Not being in the room or not being close to the team like you guys are, man. You know, viewing it from afar, everything with Kirill Kaprizov it's just intriguing. It's fascinating. That it's just shrouded in something where I can't get my proverbial finger on it. And what I mean, it's like early in the week, I'm reading a story. It's like, does Kaprizov have some type of little nagging injury he's not telling people about, which would be a no-no. And, that we just have hair apparent on. And he's like, I don't think he's hurt. It's just, he needs to play better. And talked to Dino earlier to start the show with Dino. And, he's like, yes, we expect him to take off here relatively soon. It's just with Kaprizov, it's what's happening. I mean, like, what would your take be?
Well, it isn't for a lack of work. Like, he hasn't changed anything at the rink yet. Whenever you see a player go through a stretch like this, and I think it's funny, too, like, our expectations are so different now than they were when he first got here. He's got 15 points in 15 games, but anyone who's watched, it just doesn't look the same this year. And so it's super hard to diagnose because you see moments where, okay, there's our guy, but you don't see the consistent stretches with the burst and the puck. He hasn't had the puck as much as he normally does. So I don't think he's injured at all. I just don't maybe think he's feeling great. And when superstar players don't feel great, it does show up in their game. And I think part of that is confidence. They've had to spend more time defending. And that top line, whoever he's been with, has spent more time without the puck than we've seen the last couple of years. And he's minus 11. Zuccarello's minus 7. And that tells the tale, PA. They just haven't been on the attack. And they need to be better defensively, I think, if they're going to get their game back on the offensive side. Part of it is the power play has been mediocre. I'll give you that. But if you just watch these games like most Wild fans do, night in, night out, I think the biggest difference is when that Kaprizov line is on the ice, they're spending far more time without the puck. And that's the change that I think can bring his game back full circle. And like I mentioned, the work has been there. And I was super curious because he didn't practice the day after that Dallas debacle, and everybody was nervous about, is he hurt? Is it a maintenance day? No one knew. And so, yesterday when they got their first full skate on here in Stockholm, he was out there. He looked great. It was a physical, fast-paced practice, and then he stayed out after like he always does, working on those small skills. So I think all is well for now, but I'm with you. It's got to get better, and I think it will.
One thing on the positive side is it appears as though Brock Faber has not only picked up where he left off, and this is kind of an odd way to transition as you're just talking about some of the defensive woes that have taken place, but Faber is not only looking the part, but there's the growth through 15 games. Brock, maybe a bright spot amidst a team sixth in the Central?
Yeah, and I think if we would have had this interview 6-7 weeks ago during training camp, and you would have asked me the two most important players for Wild fans to watch in the early part of the season, I would have pointed to two guys, Marco Rossi and Brock Faber. And I would have told Wild fans, if those two guys can be big-time players and take big steps, the Wild are going to be in business, not just this year, but down the road. They're super important. They are the future of kind of the core of this hockey team. And so Brock Faber, off to a great start. And what we saw last year wasn't just adrenaline from that great NCAA run he had with Minnesota. And he and Jonas Brodin have been, without a doubt, their two best players in the defensive zone. They've been outstanding. Brodin's +7, Faber's +3. They're great together. Faber is everything we hoped for and more. This kid's going to be a standout, shutdown defenseman with offensive skills for the entirety of his career. So that is super exciting. It kind of gets muddied and lost in the fact that the Wild's team's goals against is north of 4, and their penalty kill is at the bottom of the league at 63.5%. And I'm not mentioning that because that's Brock Faber's fault, but it gets lost because Wild fans don't want to hear about Brock Faber right now. They want to figure out how we can keep the puck out of our net. I think that's what the Wild are trying to do right now. I think Jared Spurgeon being back here after missing the first 13 games, being paired up with Jake Middleton and getting that whole thing going again will be helpful. But I'm with Anthony. The timing of these saves in games and some of these big plays and big moments has gone against Minnesota. It's an 82-game schedule. You have to stay the course. You got to keep working. Yes, you have to make adjustments. I think the goalies will get it going. I think Gus will be Gus again. He hasn't been yet this year outside of maybe a start or two. But right back to your point, long-term, big picture, oh my gosh, is Brock Faber a good player?
Yeah, and that's where, and maybe this is too #faith 9 to noon style, but in some ways I'm finding optimism with this team from the fact that we do need more from our known commodities, as in, Pat Maroon, like showing up, he's making plays, he fits into the mix. We're not talking about a situation where this brand new investment is not paying off and it's absolutely killing the team. We need Kaprizov to be Kaprizov. We need guys who can be better to be better, and we know where that bar typically is for them. In some ways, this early in the season-long schedule, that kind of lends me to be on the optimistic side of things. Does that make sense?
It makes sense because, you got a couple of factors here. Matt Boldy has only played half the games. He's off to a slow start, and the better he plays, the more attention he draws. The more attention he draws, the more it frees up Kirill Kaprizov. They're normally on different lines, and they feed off each other, and it's been a little bit of a slow start for Matt Boldy, and I think a lot of that has to do with working through that injury that happened, right off the hop in game number 2. Another factor to think about with this team is the schedule is set up where they had a ton of travel. They weren't at their very best. And that's also going to level up. You've got these 2 games this weekend. Then you've got all that time to recuperate until Black Friday when you host the Avalanche. The schedule starts to get back to normal. It hasn't felt normal all year. This has certainly been a focal point, I think, with the Swedes in the locker room. They've been looking forward to this. Let's just see how this team responds now. You feel like the Dallas game was rock bottom. I feel like Matt Boldy's going to get it going. I feel like Kirill Kaprizov can feed off of him, and I do believe, with everything I know about the game, that having Jared Spurgeon back and back fully healthy for a consistent period of time is going to level things off on the penalty kill. He's out there. Whenever the Wild take a penalty, it's Brodin and Spurgeon that hop over those boards, and the Wild have been criticized. They haven't blocked enough shots. He's the guy that can set the tone. He's one of the smallest players in the league, and he's one of the best shot blockers in the league. Year in and year out. That sets a tone where everybody else around him has to be better in that area. They haven't been good in that area yet this year. Him coming back now, I think, will be a catapult to get that part of the game going. But it does really come down to one thing. You think about what's going on with the Vikings right now and the play they're getting from their quarterback. The team feeds off the goalie just like in football they feed off the quarterback. And when the goalie is confident and the goalie is making saves, the team is confident and the team plays at a better level. Until that happens, nothing's going to change. And so I don't want to put that kind of pressure on either Flower or Gus this weekend, but it has to be better. The team goals against cannot be over 4. And part of it is the way this team is defended. They haven't blocked enough shots. They've taken dumb penalties in bad spots in hockey games. But part of it also is they need to have that save. They got it last year, and they were a playoff team. They haven't got it this year and haven't looked like a playoff team. So they have to work off each other, but I do think it starts with good goaltending, and I think you're going to see some of that this weekend. They need it.
My man, thank you very much for the time. Safe travels. Look forward to seeing you out at the racetrack somewhere in the near future or at a hockey game, and greatly appreciate you, KG. Thank you.
Fun chat with you guys. Have a great weekend in Denver, PA.
Yep, got you. See you, brother. Kevin Gorg, Bally Sports North, and Anthony Lapanta preceded him from Stockholm, Sweden, discussing the Minnesota Wild with this worldly venture. Nordo produces, and I'm Paul Allen. You're listening to 9 to noon, your cash thing later.
The Fan, along with 2 men in a junk truck, they want to give you a chance to put $1,000 in your hand. The keyword is bills, and you just go to KFAN.com and enter that keyword. Pay some bills by winning $1,000 with the keyword
The Fan.
News to Nord brought to you by The Casino at CanterburyPark.com. Poker, blackjack, table games all year round. Bingo on Tuesday nights. And live racing resuming in the spring. All sorts of cool events. So get to CanterburyPark.com to learn more. Tonight, Gopher Hoops versus Missouri. 7:30 pregame, 8 p.m.-ish tip right here on your home for all Gopher Sports. The Fan. And good luck to Grimm. Good luck to the Maroon and Gold. No doubt about that. That pushes Thursday Night Football to KFAN Plus. And the Ravens are 3.5-point favorites. PA, they're hosting the Bengals. Kind of a sweet matchup. Now, both teams, by the way, had to endure the bitterness of watching an opposing team's kicker ace a game winner on their home fields. The Bengals losing to the Texans and C.J. Stroud, almost undoubtedly rookie of the year territory with him and this Texans team that pushed their way above 500. But then the Browns and Deshaun Watson, who was apparently playing with a fracture in his shoulder, his throwing shoulder, by the way. One of the worst first quarters of his career, battles back, 150-some yards and a TD the rest of the way. And the Browns and Stefanski walk off on the Ravens at M&T. That's where the game will be tonight. Ravens minus 3.5 with this patchwork run game that continues to work. Keaton Mitchell is coming out of nowhere to be some sort of stud. Gus Edwards and company, Mark Andrews, and I saw Odell Beckham Jr. get a rare touchdown, it feels like, at this stage of his career last weekend. But kind of a cool matchup between the Bengals and Ravens tonight.
Are the Cincinnati Bengals, at this stage of the equation, really going to be 5-5? I mean, it's weird, like if I'm with you and Sauce at Turtle Lake and I'm standing outside the place because I can't go in it, and then I'm just like thinking about it and we have telepathy, and it's like, wonder what Paul thinks. First thing I would think is Cincinnati really going to go 5-5? I mean, 5-5, you're starting to jack around with not making the playoffs.
Yeah.
For a team that was widely considered into the season by many as one of the 4 best teams in the NFL. But, I mean, if you do power rankings right now, or like if these teams were to meet at a neutral field, who, where, when, and why would win. But, like, I can't put the Lions behind the Bengals. So, like, they've been usurped by the Lions, in my estimation. 49ers are set to roll. You have Philadelphia, maybe the best team in the show. So it's what's the Ravens record? 6-4?
They are 7-3, I think.
Yeah. See them 7-4 and Joey Burrow 6-5.
It might be 6-3. Let me check.
Yeah, but Joey Burrow not being 5-5, that hits. Now it might be too low hanging Rube-like, but you're getting points with Burrow. The assumption Chase is healthy, Mixon is healthy, and desperation. So I'll take Cincinnati on the money line if you don't mind.
Ooh, I like that. I do like that the chokehold that Draymond Green put on Rudy the other night is going to cost him $770,000 in salary, as he has been suspended for 5 games. Klay Thompson, Jaden McDaniels, and Rudy Gobert all fined $25,000, but some finality to the melee that took place in the Bay a couple of nights ago. Last night, kind of ended with a thud. The 7-game win streak for the Howl ends at 7, 133-115 the final. The defense limiting opponent shooting, that's been the talker over the course of the winning ways, but the Suns shot 60% last night, led by KD and a returning Devin Booker, matching 31 points apiece.
Did you watch?
I only watched a little bit of it. I was bouncing in and out.
Yeah, I watched pretty intently early. We never were winning. It just, it was a different speed. It was just, with Booker back and then now with Booker, you see how Durant plays off Booker and Nurkic is having a fantastic season. Then they bring the beef eater in, Eubanks, and he starts, jacking people up and just being all physical and everything.
Yeah.
And this is not saying, Phoenix overall is better than the Minnesota Timberwolves in most situations until proven otherwise. But when you catch a team off a back-to-back, on a back-to-back, after they just beat Steph's team 2 times, and you're getting your leader back in Booker, and the crowd was all nasty and everything, yeah, I just, it was relatively close early. I just never thought we were winning that game.
I saw Alan Horton kind of refer to it as a schedule loss. So in some ways, to your point there, just the way it framed up where we were coming from, what they were building on with Booker. And I keep forgetting Bradley Beal's on the team, too. Now, he didn't play last night, but that's going to be an interesting team to watch moving forward. Here is Chris Finch after the game.
we just lacked the desire to get into the ball and make it uncomfortable for them tonight. I mean, that's been what we've really done a good job with, and then shutting down the paint, and they were living in our paint early in the game, and then, then by the time we were able to shore up our paint, they had enough comfort in the game to be able to rise up and make shots, even guys who were contested or guys who are, more of their marginal shooters were getting clean looks. So,
Next up, they do remain on the road. They'll head to the Bayou and facing the New Orleans Pelicans on Saturday, 6 p.m.-ish tip. And you're going to probably see Zion on Saturday. You did not see Zion when Zion Williamson, that is, as he was welcoming, I believe, a child into the world, which is cool for him. Congratulations. But he should be back and raring to go on Saturday. So not the toughest test, but a tough test coming up on Saturday for the Howl. And new work is on the mind of now former Bills offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey. Dorsey has worked with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills since 2019 when he was the team's quarterback coach. It was the beginning or the off-season following the 2021 season in which he was elevated to OC. After the loss, the turnovers, and some of the problems that the Bills have endured in 2023, Ken Dorsey let go. They are now 5-5 with that loss to the Broncos on Monday, and that's the team's worst winning percentage through more than 2 games since finishing 6-10 in 2018. So some gripping of sticks in Buffalo.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And it's when, like I said earlier, when you make such a bold stance off a fumble as to bench somebody who was a major part of the plan the entire week. I mean, that jacks with the way the coordinator wants to do things.
Yeah.
And then the coordinator gets fired. So, I mean, there is more deeply rooted tumult within that covenant than obviously anybody knows. That this team personifies shiny toy terrorism, where like Josh Allen, somebody yesterday when I went out to Canterbury for a little while to sit there with my son Derek working at Chip's Bar in the card casino and chat with them for a little bit. And somebody came up, we were chatting about football, and he's like, Josh Allen can't win the big game. Well, it's just a quick little Josh Allen stats get to the postseason on Pro Football Reference. Go ahead and look at those numbers. They're pretty good.
Yeah.
So I'm not now Josh Allen is up and Josh Allen is down. But you know what? It's like with Cousins, all right? I never was a fan of we're going to get him to improvise more and move differently than he had for 10 years.
Yeah, be different than he's been his whole career.
I don't like that. I mean, now if that's a 10 and I'm at a 0, so let's find the 5 here with what we're talking about. It's like with Dobbs. I mean, all of a sudden, if we expect Josh to become a pocket passer and you are not to move and you are not to improvise, well, that's going to kill the offense. And with Josh, they're at a stage right now where they're really, really trying to keep him into the pocket, man. And I don't know if they've said that or not, but, in watching that game, I was just surprised that he didn't improvise as much as he normally does.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that's good for Josh or good for their offense. Then somebody gets fired. So, maybe
he's nicked up. It could be a Lamar-type conversation where at some point Lamar Jackson can't run every time. He's got to be just a passer later in his career.
Yeah, I'm not Josh Allen. By the way, Josh Allen, I didn't look up these stats, but, let's like the AFC title game or division round to Kansas City, whatever it is. I mean, go ahead and remember Josh Allen's work in those games.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
I still like Josh. Now, the fumbles, one of the fumbles he had with James Cook was embarrassing. It just slips out of his hand, and it's mental mistakes and moments like that.
Yep.
And so those things have to improve. But similar to Kirk, then you have to look at this from a team scale or perception, and it goes well beyond just daggering the QB.
A team that did not fumble away points in Ann Arbor and hosts Notre Dame beginning tomorrow is the Golden Gophers hockey team, and their coach Bob Motzko joins us weekly 9 to noon. He's next on KFAN.
KFAN, The Fan.
Puck comes back into the Michigan zone. Goes to the left of the net. Gophers center to score! Brody Lamb, as this line scores her 3rd straight goal. Connor Kurth, Jimmy Clark, and Brody Lamb connecting again, and Minnesota goes on top 4-3. Gophers without Aaron Hughlin tonight, back home ill. We wish him a speedy recovery. Now here's a Snuggerud shooting. He scores. The puck came off the netminder, but Snuggerud was right there, tipped it home, and we got a tie hockey game.
Hey, Bob Motzko, Paul Allen, what's going on, buddy?
Well, Paul, it's a good Thursday. We're back home this weekend, so I got Notre Dame Fighting Irish coming in, and then Michigan State next week. So, we got 4 home games here in the next couple of weeks, and we're making progress.
Yep, 7 o'clock Notre Dame tomorrow and Saturday at 3 a.m. at Mariucci. And gophersports.com if you're interested in tickets. And you can listen to the games at AM 1130 KTLK. This is Bob Motzko, coach of the Golden Gophers hockey team. And we heard a highlight there to begin, Brody Lamb. Byron, Minnesota, go crazy. I mean, holy cow. Byron, Minnesota, go crazy. He already has more points this season than he did his freshman year. And a third of his shots go in. Obviously, that there will be some form of regression to that, I imagine, a 30% scoring rate. But that's incredible, Bob.
Well, he's got a knack to score his whole career. He's done that. And he got his dad was a heck of a player, played at Denver and Jeff Lamb. So it's in his genes. He was a tremendous scorer down. He played for Dodge County. It kind of put them on the map, got him into the state tournament. And we brought him in a year early. He had some growing pains last year, but you could see it all. And the great thing with Brody is we haven't even seen the best. It's yet to come. He's going to be a big time player for us, and he's just scratching on the door right now. And it's fun to watch that happen.
And Coach, reading up on these players to have something different for you weekly per how the games go. So now yesterday I read about Jimmy Clark. Now, first and foremost, he has a name, Jimmy Clark, where I feel like I should follow it up by saying, Jimmy Clark, I got all his albums. But he's a freshman and a wild draft pick. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but he was a late add to the roster after Cooley signed late in the summer. And Clark continues to produce, pair of goals last weekend, including a key one late in the second period on Friday when you got the regulation win. Jimmy Clark, Bob, how key has he been?
It's been great for us. Jimmy, young guy out of Edina. He played last year in Green Bay, and he had a terrific year in Green Bay. All set to go back. We lose a guy late, and we lost it after the portal was closed down, and we had to bring him in, and we said we were going to play him, and it was up to him, and he's far exceeded anything we thought. But he's a smart, cerebral player. He's picking up kind of where he left off last year in Green Bay. He's going to be a terrific player for us, and last year we had those NHL ready players in Cooley and Nyes and Faber and Lacombe and Johnson. We got a bunch of guys right now, I got asked that yesterday because I predicted Brody Lamb would have a great year, but I predicted that with about 9 guys. And so I'm going to be right somewhere, but we've got more that are coming. And that's what's going to be fun about our team. And we just got to stay steady right now. We got to get healthy. That's the darndest thing we've dealt with this year.
Yep.
But we got a fun group to follow, and you got some guys like the two we're talking about that are really starting to find their groove. And we got a few more that are on the come as well.
Bob, stay steady. I mean, what are you talking about? 4 road points are never easy to get, and you guys managed to do that at Ann Arbor. And in what ways did the team grow during the most recent series?
Well, I'm going to use the word, I'm going to be a little boring on this, but staying steady. Now, we lost 3 straight, and that was the question, Gophers lose 3 straight, and we stayed steady back here because we were banged up. We had guys on the come. Now we haven't lost in 4 games, and the same thing. We can't get too far ahead of ourselves. We just have to stay steady with this group, and we've had a terrific week again. And we can see us growing inside our group. Now we got to get traction, and we need some offense to pop for some other players to get traction. Our power play has got to, we've scored a couple in the last 2 weeks. Our power play has to take a step. We take these steps like this. I got a sneaky feeling this team's going to end up being pretty good.
You kind of touched on this earlier, Coach Motzko, but you did lose a ton of offense from your defensemen last year, mainly with Faber and Kester. Luke Mittelstadt, is there what role is there for him to fill to assist what we're talking about now?
Well, in the NCAA last year in the Frozen Four, he got 2 goals against BU. He had a terrific freshman season. Montreal picks him up late in the draft, and his offense is there. He's going to pick up a major portion of our offense from our back line. He's one of the guys that we're counting on. But we have been a little offensively challenged early in the year as we're trying to put the pieces together. But I'm not crying right now, but the injuries have really stunted our growth. I have never gone through a year like this with so many guys that went down. We lost a guy yesterday again, and hopefully it's short term. And because we need to get traction, and once it comes, you're going to start to see guys like Luke Mittelstadt and Connor Kurth, Brodzinski starting to heat up a little bit, Snuggerud more consistent, and that's what we're waiting on right now. And we can feel it coming, but it has to happen because the guys have to feel it then.
Hey, I'm way out of my lane asking this question, so if it's dumb, I apologize. But I'm just wondering, into Saturday's game against the Wolverines, if you preach to the boys about the importance of improving on faceoffs, and it's like the faceoff numbers Friday at Michigan not as good as Saturday. And I just know game by game, coaches will preach different things. But did you hit them with that into Saturday because it got better?
Yes, we had a couple of guys that have been having very strong weekends that were off a bit on Friday, and it is a major emphasis. You can win if you win over 50%. If you get towards 60 on your faceoffs, that means you're starting with the puck. And when you got offensive players, that puts you in a good spot. And it's one of the things I think fans might take for granted, but it is a monster part of success. And now we're going to be playing Notre Dame as one of the best faceoff teams in the country. And our center's got a challenge on their hands this weekend.
So time for 2 more. So Notre Dame here Friday and Saturday, like you said. Gophersports.com for information on the series and/or tickets. Listen to the games at AM 1130 KTLK. The Irish, do they still try to win those grimy, low-scoring games?
Yes and no. I mean, last year they were a little offensively challenged. They got more sticks in their lineup this year. It really appears they're finding some confidence. One of the returning players, Slaggert, had a real off year last year, but it was kind of their whole team from an offensive standpoint. I think he had 7 goals. He's already got 8 now as an upperclassman. So that's just an indication the guys are feeling it more on over there. They just swept Ohio State last weekend, but they only gave up 1 goal on the weekend, and that has been one of their strengths. They got arguably one of the best goaltenders in the country. Bishop's back for a 5th year with the COVID rule, and he was first team all Big Ten last year. He might even been an All-American last year, and he's a heck of a goaltender. So you are in tight games when you play them, but they've got more sticks this year. They're really going to help Notre Dame.
Got a finale here from one of your biggest fans, Johnny the Mouse Mickelson, captain of the 83 Wayzata Club hockey team. I was out at the racetrack yesterday where my son works, and I told him you would be on, and he respectfully wanted me to ask you, it seems Rhett Pitlick is most dangerous when he uses his speed. Is he using his speed enough?
Yes, and he's quietly, his points are down, but he's leading us in scoring opportunities. And so that's a good sign because Rhett's got a tremendous history of scoring and being part of the offense. And I like his demeanor right now. Sometimes when guys are in little slumps, sports athletes happens all the time. If they take it mentally the wrong way, it sets them back even further. It's not phasing Rhett right now. He's just playing through it. And pucks are going to start going in for him. And it is a great statement when he's using the speed and being tenacious. He's a dangerous player. And we feel he's right there knocking on the door to get back to a higher offensive output.
Hey, to Bobby, an early Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to you, everybody associated with the team. May God bless you, Bob. Thank you very much for being so accommodating. And I'll call you in a couple of weeks, okay?
All right, PA. Great to chat with you.
Yep. See you, bud. Bob Motzko, coach of the Golden Gophers hockey team. Notre Dame Fighting Irish, Friday and Saturday. And you can get tickets for that at gophersports.com or listen to the games, AM 1130, KTLK.